Thank you very much for having me here. I'm thrilled to be at SyScan'. I study a lot of papers, PhD theses, master's theses, and the papers last year presented at SyScan' were especially impressive. Two of them, Rob E. and Box Zone. I will talk a little bit about this. I have a little dynamic SyScan' update. A subset of the research that Charlie and Chris did on Dartmouth on car CAN hacking, I sponsored too. I did it with 3 students, undergraduate students who were getting their engineering degree, and we managed to own the board, the dashboard, denial of view. We also published tools and software so that you could download. We did it with Travis Goodspeed's Goodthopter. And we have a methodology of figuring out the ARP, IBs, and so on. I can talk about that a little bit more later on. Much of that stuff is available. If you go, you can see the video of what we did here at Car CAN 2013, and so on. So we have free tools and so on. Anybody can do this. We did it for under $6,000. So we even had to buy 2 cars because we bought the wrong car in the first. The university wasn't happy with me. So. I am going to talk about, in the general terms, about the Sidechannels. I wanted to talk also about my research, but our friendly government told me, I'm sorry for the inconvenience, Daniel, but you can't talk about that. So if I have white space, it is, oh, darn it again. It says, we're sorry, I can't talk about it. It's whited out. But I'll talk about other stuff. I will talk about how, systematic approaches of how to visualize, display in the widest sense, maybe bring to your cognition side channels, how to analyze them, how to represent them, and I'll show some of the more modern techniques. So some of the techniques that people use who may not be exposed to this either at the university level or from practice are good in certain environments and circumstances, but may not be applicable to others. So I want to show you maybe some of the most general methods that you can use in order to do this. It is my contention that the age of experts in hacking will move more and more into side channel analysis, into observables. If you followed some of the data, privacy data scandals in America, it has to do mostly with metadata, which is a form of side channel. So and afterwards I'll give a little bit of a blueprint. I got started in this research at Black Hat actually when I met Thomas Dullian in 2006. Some people say there's a new Thomas Dullian. I don't think so. He's still the same kind, decent guy that I met then. Of course, I work with Travis, helped me a lot, and with Sergey, I've known since the PhD years and postdocs. Yeah. So too many people to thank, but you know, we all stand on the shoulders of giants. So thank you very much. Okay, I talked about that. So this is just some what we did, the methodology, how to figure out the ARB IDs. You know, you have to figure out the ARB ID of the car. So I can talk about that a little bit more, and you can just Google for Recon 2013 hot wiring of the future, how we did that. So my talk is mostly about the side channels. And what are side channels? Side channels is you know, what you read about. Side channels are external observables that you use in order to infer internal states. If you ever work for the police or intelligence agencies and they teach you how to read, let's say, micro-expression, or how you know, polygraphs are basically BS. The polygrapher actually looks at whether you get nervous, whether you blink too much, your voice goes high like that. So side channels that from which you can infer internal state. We've seen these side channels pop up more and more in computer security research. This can be actually anything. It could be timing side channels. One of the best timing side channels research came out of core security in 2007, rebalancing of B trees in data structures from which they leaked a private key with no privileges whatsoever. It was very good work. You have, of course, DPA, power analysis. You have OS events. That's what I work in. So I work at the level of performance counters events and hardware events. EM radiation, you know, acoustic spectral signatures. This research was done by Aaron Trommer, who was at MIT at the time, and he had just had an update. Many of you may have seen that it was announced about 2 months ago. It was very nice research. I gave a talk yesterday at the NTU, which is one of the up-and-coming universities that are under 50 years old. I think they're ranked #2. Very good group. Mark Strettinger actually does all sorts of crazy stuff on side channels. They did This is cutting edge. I've never seen this before. Punctuated hardware magnetic side channel analysis, where they put little wires, they decap the chip, put little wires in there. Awesome stuff. I mean, really, really good stuff they're doing there. So I would encourage you to have a look at that. So I have here on the right, a graph from Hund. I have a lot of references. You can all look this up. Don't trust anything I say. So you can build generic timing side channels against a memory management system to leak some information about the layout of the address space. This works because we have a hierarchy of memory, and I'll talk about that a little bit longer, a little bit more later on. The resolution is still not 100%, but what can we do? So side channels are not new. There was a polymath in the 19th century. His name was William Whewell. He coined a term called the consilience of induction. I used to, as I said, recovering academic, this was the graph that I said. So in order to have a piety phrase, in order to remember what this is, it means if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, has a duck genome, says ducky things, the Pope says it's a duck, lives in the water, all these are information strands which point, hopefully, to the same conclusion. The more of these different, hopefully orthogonal, meaning independent information strands or hypotheses point towards the same conclusion, that strengthen that conclusion. I had this discussion actually yesterday with Mark, who was telling me about some of the new research at Black Hat Asia. Ooh. But so one way of getting rid of being able to tell stuff about you is to give them inconsistent information. I had a research project at that in 2006, 2007. This is the Consumer Information Bulletin #1 I'm going to give. You cannot evade, especially not in Singapore, but also in the world, you cannot evade emitting side channels unless you want to live like a hermit in a cave. What you can do, you can mess up the data analytics. That you can do. And that I can teach people how to do. That's actually much more fun, because suddenly you live in Vanuatu and you're 120 years old, if you know where the pressure points are on those algorithms. So a question, of course, arises, what side channels do you have? And there are surprisingly many side channels. There was a very good paper at the CCS 2013 on zero permission apps that can, from which they, very, very basic stuff. TCP/IP, bandwidth usage, from which they inferred, your medical history, for instance. There's a couple of steps in between, but the upshot is you cannot escape good side channel analysis. But so you have many of them. You have to know what the type 1, type 2 error is. What does that mean? You have many causes that map to many side channels, and you have to figure out which one causes which one, or which one is more correlated with the other one. So there are a couple of challenges to the side channel analysis. One is you need something that's useful. I have left academia also because most academic research is not useful. Not practical. They do it for tenure reasons. They do it so that they have bragging rights with 5 of their colleagues worldwide. But I like computer security to be useful. So you need something that's actionable. You need to have a way of negotiating higher dimensions. We human beings can live. We live in 3 dimensions. Some of us can visualize 4. Some more if you're yogi or good acid, what have you. But we need something for representation that can capture more than 3 or 4 dimensions. I've looked at that for NASA for quite some time, and I came to the conclusion that you have to move out to other senses. You have to be like a baby who recognizes the mother with the heartbeat. One of the best inventions of modern times, not just a flush toilet, but the heart rate monitor in hospitals. That beep, beep, beep. It's brilliant, and it's simple, and it works. That's a dimension, the oral dimension that you can use in order to represent a signal. The other thing that you have to have, and which is extremely hard, is the dynamics that unfolds in time, so in feature space. So I'm going to discuss in this talk a little bit how to represent such signals. That's going to be very brief because it's only on the screen. How to detect these signals. You'll see some of the more advanced signal detection algorithms based on mutual information. That's relatively new. That only came out about 2 years ago, but it's very useful. And how to prevent or mitigate the leaking of such observables. Yeah. So some of the properties that you have to have, and most people don't do this. Most people decide on what they're going to use on the basis of what they had for breakfast. One has to actually sit down. It's like if you code something. Sit down, you do your specs, you do your I sound like your boring father, but it's a factor of 10. Every minute you spent in one of the prior stages will save you 10 minutes, then 100 minutes, then 1,000 minutes down the line. So you have to think about very clearly, if you want to have useful representation, what are your parameters, what are your bounds? How can you use the minimum amount possible to, minimum amount of information possible to extract whatever you need that is useful? One thing that, that people fail to pay attention to is scalability. You have to be able to zoom in, zoom out. This is, different orders of magnitude, especially on computers. One thing that I like about being a computer scientist is that you have, we not only do we build the own universe that we observe, but we do this on a scale of about 9 to 12 orders of magnitude. No other science, as far as I know, does that on that scale. Cosmologists look at the cosmos, but they don't look also at the quantum effects very low. But we go from photonic side channel emissions. If people were at Recon 2013, Nedos's research was outstanding. Guy is going to go very far. Those photonic side channels that he had, up to worldwide global networks. Those are many orders of magnitude. So one has to give some thought into that. So then the nature of the data determines, or should determine to a large part, and again, you have to give some thought into that, at least a visual representation of how you want to have it. Is a network representation most useful for this? Or do you need something that's hierarchical? Most people by default do stuff that is hierarchical or kind of a network, but you guys know this from your own problems reversing with IDO and when you have graphical representations. Even if you have that fisheye view, it's extremely hard to follow that stuff down. The problem has not been licked yet, but someone who comes up with a better visualization, I think, will be a winner. So as I said, I looked at this a bit and I came to the conclusion that I have to go to other dimensions. Oral, hearing, you can do touch. I used to have a project where I wanted to have rendered web pages on one of those, those nail things that you give to children. And you see the relief of the face, so they could read it like that. Somebody actually did that years later with Braille, a Braille reader that translates what's on the screen onto something that you can touch. So there are a lot of senses that you can still use. That could be used usefully in used 3 times that are usefully applied for side channels. That's how much I want to say about visualization. Let me talk about detection. Because this is the crux of the matter. And studying these extremely good papers, both Roppy and Boxzone, I was always struck by the temerity that the people had. I mean, they looked at this and they found the patterns themselves. But but I would think that it would be a little bit easier if you use systematic methods. So one method from Reshev, and this is superior to linear regressions and all sorts of splines and all sorts of other methods you may have learned in school, is the mind statistic, the maximal information non-parametric exploration. What this does, and if this means nothing to you, if it's too complicated, the only thing you have to remember is it captures a wide range of associations between different variables. What do I mean by that? So, you can capture, of course, linear stuff like this. You can capture stuff that is sinusoidal like this. You can capture stuff that is parabolic, also well. You can capture stuff that associations that go like a pair of scissors. Circle, or circle with a thing with a line in between. You may have signals that have these properties, but the other methods will not find stuff like that. So you can find linear, exponential, periodic, and non-functional signals. Non-functional signals are signals that are not representable by functions. The good news about mind statistics, which I use extensively, is that they are pretty insensitive to noise. It has actually extremely good properties when you want to look at these. So this is probably unreadable in the background. The only thing that one should, but I have all this will be released and you can look at the slides. The thing that's pertinent here in this slide is, as you see here, the data gets noisier, and you have equitable degradation of the MIC. This is one of the measures with all these signal types. As the noise gets increases, they all reduce about as much, which is good news because whatever the association type is, it roughly degrades at the same time. This is not the case with smoothing splines, which are very good, for linear relationships, but already degrade very much when there's no noise with double relationships here or with non-parametric regression loss. So people who do data analysis. So on So that's about analysis, how you could detect these signals. And these tools are available for free. You can put in your performance counter events. You can put in whatever else you captured of signals of interest to try to distill relationships out of this. We have, I lied a little bit before when I said there's no way that you can prevent Sidechannels. I should have given an addendum. You can prevent Sidechannels, but you have to work at design time. This type of research is relatively recent. Even the US NIST regulations, the NIST suggestions, FIPS 3, have very, very little reference to actual Sidechannels. But they have, but Goldwasser, who is a professor at MIT and Technion, I think she just won the Turing Prize, if I'm not mistaken. One of these prizes. They have an approach of building at design time, building the functions such that you minimize the leaking of these observables. I think that's a big way forward. I actually nominated this paper for the NSA cybersecurity research paper of 2012. It was very good. This is what I wanted to talk about: cyber mission planning. And I can't talk about any results, but I can give you the high-level overview. So we have. Well, it's no secret that I work together with the US Department of Defense. Now, when you have a campaign and so on, like we had, let's say, in the first Gulf War, 1991, we want to take down the transmission towers that give information, to tanks or what have you. So what do? We bomb the TV stations, we bomb, for air support, we bomb the radio stations. Then we have to build them up again. So not only do we bomb them and they're destroyed and we kill, dozens of people around, but afterwards we invest $40 million in order to rebuild that stuff. What we only need is the transmission of radio to stop. So it would be very nice if the commander had actually an option of not calling air support to bomb that thing, but could press a button and we would brick the firmware. So for that you need cyber planning, cyber mission planning. Unlike kinetic planning, for which we have 80, 90 years of maybe 60, 80 years of data. Namely, you drop something from a certain height, certain tonnage, the blast radius, you can calculate all that, and all that they plan like this. We have nothing like that for cyber reality. So I have a multi-year project, Natural Laws of and in virtual reality, where I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to have predictive laws. So, and as you very well know, because of the we are bound by many more constraints in the physical world than we are either on computers or even in abstract mathematics. So you have many more. You have many more degrees of freedom. This makes the distillation of these predictive laws much harder. I'll give you an example. If I throw a ball, I can calculate Newton's laws and see on Earth, how far it will go. If there is no real equivalent of, if you're sending out the packet, can I calculate, what is the likelihood, how far will it go? I don't have invariance like that. I have in the end, but we don't have anything that's useful yet. So that's what I want to talk a little about the results, but I can't, so I'm going to skip that. What I can talk about is one of the interesting parts of doing this is this here. So as I said, I work at the level of hardware events and performance counters. That means after a little while, I was a little bit like Neo in the Matrix. I could see when you open a socket and a print line, I could see the signals from the performance events, from the context switches, from the interrupts going on there. So it was actually absolutely fascinating. But it's extremely hard to distill or to infer back from the effect back to the cause. And the reason for this is that, and this came as a surprise for me, well, shouldn't have, but it came, but after a while thinking about it. So we have super pipeline, multi-stage, multi-threaded programs all the time. For the operating system and the microarchitecture have only one main job. That job is to reduce data latency. As you know, most of the processors idle 99% of the time. Why? Processor speed has increased, but data latency is the killer. So what they do, what the conglomerate does is it solves a continuously space-time optimization problem in placing whatever operands you need as close as possible to the processing unit as you can. We have about 9 or so, 8, 9, however you want to count them, orders of magnitude of memory from the registers in the nanoseconds, C1, C2, C3, main memory, down to the hard disk, then out to the network, USB, what have you. And that's what it does. It's a dynamic complex feedback system. And what it does is it flattens the execution of. So if I run a program, I don't get I would like to be able to discern that a print line does a certain signal, but what it does is it starts chopping up and interleaving the functionality and executing it out of order. So it's extremely hard. It's a very hard but very interesting problem of how to figure this out. Plus, you have interrupts, stochastic interrupts from the user, from the I/O. There are practically 0 models on this. There's only one model that I found in 1995. The guy became extremely rich and doesn't answer any more emails, but I'm building another one like that. So can't talk about that. Okay. So what I can talk about is how would I use mine for that? So so you have to start somewhere. So the intuition is there that an asset that's what we call a program, right? An asset signal is reflected in a signal that looks roughly like a parabola. It has a start, it has a peak, it has an end. This is a beginning assumption. Many signals may not be like that, but I didn't want something that was more like a heartbeat, that was regular. I wanted an effect, and I wanted to have a cause and an effect that was bounded in time, so I looked for these type of signals. So I called it not a heartbeat, not a shooting star, but still a function. So I was using these MIND-MIC detection in order, MIND-MIC approaches in order to find such signals, in order to distill, if I do open a socket, if I print something out, if I do, let's say, AES decryption, what is a signature that I have at that level? So so I chose a particular MIND-MIC set that represented these parabolic signals. Okay. One issue that one has is if you do experiments, and I'm an experimental scientist. That's at least what I hope I am. So computer science started with mathematics, but the old guard has to die until we know that computer science cannot actually be predicted from math. Every expert writer here knows this. So you have beautiful proofs on paper, but the proof is in the pudding. Can you exploit it? As they say in German, Papier ist geduldig. Paper is very patient. You can write anything down on paper, but what actually matters is execution on the machine. In order to do this, you have to actually run experiments. If you have many factors that you want to vary, say you want to run it on different configurations that have 4 different types, say, and 5 levels, you have already 4 to the power 5 different combinations in there. So you have a combinatorial explosion. So you need a way of testing the stuff in a way that can negotiate this without having a combinatorial explosion, because it goes into hundreds of thousands of tests. Luckily, for courtesy of the US taxpayer and NIST, you can use, for instance, automate the ACTS and the CCM tool. You can cut down on 2-way and 3-way and N-way testing. This, if you take nothing from my talk, have a look at this tool. It's for free. You can download it and you can do whatever you want. Here I was testing my different stuff. A very nice problem that arises in this type of cyberkinetic planning is because of the degrees of freedom, many more degrees of freedom that you have in a computer world as opposed to the physical world, is that the asset-target matching problem is much harder. I'll give you an example. If you have a door that is 1.90 meters, or 2 meters, no, the door is 1.90 meters, and you are 1.92 meters. If you squeeze a bit and you kick it, you can get it through that door. But if you have something that works on version 1.7, the degradation for version 1.71 is not graceful. It may not work, just a little bit less. It may not work at all. You have a lot of and you know this, you have a lot of step functions on computer systems that you don't have in nature. Nature abhors step functions. Not at all levels. At the quantum level, you do have step functions. But in general, in our macroscopic world, we don't have step functions. So a good question is here, if I have a configuration, I only have partial configuration, or I have a configuration that I didn't test, but it's only different in, let's say I tested on a system with 4 gigabytes, but this one here has 8 gigabytes. Will it make a difference? You'd say, it won't. Oh, okay, how about 2 gigabytes or 1? Or it's a different processor model. Will the signature at the microarchitecture level be still the same? You can't predict this. You actually have to run this. At least you can't predict it yet. I'll distill a model to do that. So what you have is then a question of distance, and it's categorical data. This is not like, this is comparing apples with oranges. There's no intrinsic relation between one and the other. So you need to be able to find a matching function. And this comes from a public paper from Bora, finding the right categorical distance, for categorical categories, the right distance functions in order to find the best possible closest match. You need an asset with these characteristics of detection and what have you, but you only have it with these characteristics, and you need it for that mission. It can do that, but it can't do that. How are you going to select the best one out of that? So you need something. You need an approach to solve this categorical configuration matching. Okay, so if this all bored you, I'm sorry. But let me talk about, my research is, of course, not as interesting as the stuff that was presented last year. So this was one of the excellent presentations from last year by Georg Wikarski. I misspelled his name, I'm sorry about that. This was a brilliant idea. In fact, I explained this at Recon to Travis Goodspeed, and because he's a very clever guy, after 8 seconds, he said, holy moly. He used a worse word, but he said, that's brilliant once you understand it. And it's brilliant. He understood it right away. I also understood it not quite right away, like as fast as he. Travis is much smarter than me, but it is a great idea. So the main idea is there that you can detect ROP. ROP is malicious computations. You don't need foreign code injection. I know many of you hate ROP or JOP or what have you. I think that with the Wassenaar agreement, this is the one loophole that we have. This is not anymore. What are they going to forbid? Branching? No, you can't. So ROP is probably the loophole that we have to still do exploits in offensive computing. So what he did was he looked, like me, at performance counters events, interrupts after certain, and he built a model to see whether the frequencies of these interrupts and so on is indicative of a ROP attack, because it has a different type of signature in that type of space than normal execution. It's a very good idea. Now, like many brilliant ideas, one has to think of it. But like Oscar Wilde says, sometimes it's the duty of the intelligent man to state the obvious. Yeah. So I would encourage him to write more of a paper on it. I think it's very well done. The suggestion that I have for that, using the techniques that I mentioned, is, for instance, you can generalize this 8889 insight. You can have the side channel spectral signature of a variety of attacks, not just ROP. You can do the stuff that is maybe just with jumps. You can see you can try it with weird machines, like the machines that Bex and Sergey did, on Dwarf, for instance, hardware-based attacks. All of these will exhibit a signature in that space, and you can find this with these type of mine and mix stuff. I have a high-level work plan. I mean, you should use the mix. You should use, if you can, MATLAB. If you're affiliated with university, use MATLAB. I tried it with Octave because my company is cheap, and Octave, I pushed it to its limits, and then I couldn't do it anymore because it says, listen, it's either me or Octave. I mean, please get me some MATLAB. So, and then you have to have valid scientific setup. So I recommend Montgomery, because you have to, if you want to have results that you can reproduce, you need to have a regime that is scientifically valid. Now, this is not for me, the stuff on the left-hand side, but these are PMC measurements of people at Columbia. And this is an astonishing result, at least to me. But you can characterize at that level, at the performance counter level and hardware and microarchitecture level, programs with four events. These four that I have in there. They have a very, very unique spectral signature. It's actually great. They're doing zero-day detection at that level. The paper is now in review, and will come out there. So there's a lot of white space in the sense of open research areas, looking at not when the 32 API calls are made, but what happens at the microarchitecture and hardware level. It's a very nice paper. John Demme and so on. This will rank as one of the foundational papers of this decade. I'm quite sure of this. When I saw this, when I studied it, I said, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. Because it gives, first of all, it's 70 pages in LaTeX. I mean, these guys never sleep. Well, somebody told me they never sleep. So this was also presented at SyScan', it's box zone. So what this is, in essence, is it is two things. One, it is an example of concurrency attacks, for which I was very gratified because I was predicting that this would come, and they did it faster than I thought. This is the building stone this is one of the building blocks for concurrency attacks, and I'll speak a little bit about concurrency attacks later on. So what you have there is you have a race condition that can arrive if you have two reads from kernel mode threads to a virtual address, and you have and the address space is shared. And you can have it can be modified from user space with a ring 3 thread. And their idea was, okay, let's see, we'll find these two double fetch operations, and we'll try to bleed the time. so that we can so that we have a chance, we have a fighting chance of modifying that value. So it's a time of check to time of use attack. It was very cool. You know, they slowed down the cache line, page boundaries, TLB flushing, and they achieved a 4 orders of magnitude slowdown on this. They actually have a refinement of their paper later on. They have they talked about logistic S-curves, you know, sweet spots, about different types, the flip interval dependence on values of different types. It is extremely, extremely good paper. I would urge people to study this. Now, why am I mentioning this? I'm mentioning this because the concurrency attack that is displayed in BoxZone, which is, I mailed Sergey and I said, Sergey, I think we have the beginning of a weird machine in time. This is awesome. Because now before we did weird machines, you know, based on gadgets in sort of in space. So it's still in time a little bit, but this one here is actually built on reads that are modified in time from, I think it's brilliant. Anyway, so what can be done is we can have a look at different, we can try to distill these type of attack patterns in higher level computational language patterns that are used in parallel programming. As you know, most of your computers have multi-cores. We're moving towards that because, well, we can't up the frequency anymore of our processors. So this is from an article in 2009. So we have here for different types of applications, different types of language patterns. And if you I would definitely have a look. I mean, I suggested that already. Have a look at the assembled version of these patterns that are written in high-level languages, and you can find them. I mean, they're taught at universities. They're done they're implemented in packages, as we can see up there, high-performance computing, CAD, machine language, and so on. And find a generalization of these double fetch errors. I haven't done it yet, but I will. Once the day has 36 hours, in finding more of a general version of these type of concurrency attacks. On the other side, in theory, and this I am working on, is you need to have a model of the control system. That was that graph that I showed of the scheduler and paging. There exists none. I didn't believe it, but there exists none except for that partial base model of the RAM paging behavior from 1995. Again, that guy got very rich, lives in Seattle, doesn't respond to email. But they had at least a rudimentary model of at least the RAM paging behavior. If you have that type of model, you can bring out with certain techniques that have been just pioneered about a year ago, the assumptions, the actual control system, the control system assumptions that are in there. What do I mean by that? Many of you may know the heap feng shui of Soturov of 2007. So what he did there was, that was a control system attack of the heap allocator. That heap allocator is a control algorithm. We have hundreds of these in OSs. All of these looked at in a different light, reformulated as an optimization problem with constraints. These constraints will bring out the security relevant assumptions. It's a completely new way of going about security audits. So there are only a couple of people who have done this so far, mostly in control theory. Someone did it for the BitTorrent protocol, but once we have these control system algorithms, we're going to have a brand new way of exploiting stuff. It's going to be awesome. Okay, so what would I recommend? If everything what I said bored you because I'm not one of these old school hackers, yeah, I'm sorry, it's true, I'm not. Many of these people are much better at everything than I do. What I can do is combine stuff, right? So what I would say, if you want to start doing this, right, you have to have a model of the system. Start with at least a rudimentary model. You know, give it some thought. This is good for your character, good for your brain, and also will give you time to refine it. Use the mix that identify the side channel observables that you likely want to use. Then use the mix stuff. Use MATLAB, MATLAB to visualize these things. Use machine learning, but before you use machine learning, which is very tricky, read Domingos 2012. So you don't, you're not like the big data analytics guy like Google flew trends who just threw the algorithms at the data and got terrible predictions, because this happens. Big data is not a new buzzword, but if you don't know what you're doing, you get garbage in, garbage out. You have to select the right machine learning procedures, get yourself Murphy's book, and there is a very nice Bayesian reasoning modeling toolkit called PMTK3, which you can use to make these models, and it can answer a lot of questions. Do it in the scientific experiments, and if you have certain specialized cases, if you have something that, if you model a physical system, or even an ICS actually would work. I'm pretty sure it would work. I haven't done it yet, but I'm pretty sure it would work. You can use Eureka. Eureka was distilled natural laws from data. It was actually amazing. It was a double pendulum. It was done by Hod Lipson at Cornell. That's why it's called Eureka. Have a look at NASA's viewpoints. It's for higher it is for free, and it can visualize very, very large data sets and gives you cross sections of many dimensions. It shows you always 3 dimensions, three 2D representations at the same time. And the good news is that if you go and change something in one representation, let's say dimensions 1 and 2, you change something there, those values, it adapts on the other graphs as well. So it gives you a kind of a clue to how to visualize higher dimensional processes. Yeah. So this is a pro tip for machine language, consumer information, machine learning. You know, many of these methods that you have that under certain names, least square, ridge, lasso, when canonicalized, are nothing but some sort of Bayesian approach with different likelihoods and prior distributions. So what this means, if this is not familiar with you, it means that your favorite machine language algorithm hones in on something and weighs something, and you have to be aware what it hones in on and what it weighs. And if you're not aware of that, you are kind of like you're kind of doing blind analysis. You have to be cognizant of what it's actually weighing and what it's not. Again, Domingos will enlighten you. So attached to this talk is a short white paper that I put in there. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the cyber research section of R&D issues that work with, which could benefit from side-channel analysis. As I mentioned, I was very happy that that Boxzone came out because I wrote this in 2011, 2012 for DoD operators, and I told them, have a look at this. And I told them it will take 3 years for this to come out. I was 3 to 5 years, but Boxzone came out in 2 years, so they were faster than I thought it would be. So yeah, many of the security mechanisms that work for sequential programming are ineffective, completely ineffective actually, against concurrency attacks. So this is coming on the horizon. Most people are not prepared for this. In fact, no one is prepared for this. But when someone will have to start thinking about defensive mechanisms that work against multi-core attacks or concurrency attacks that work with double fetch like we have there in Boxzone. And I think that the careful study of Boxzone and the RAPI paper will yield some insights how to do that. I'm sorry I didn't have time to change that slide. I gave 2 other talks before, in Singapore. Another problem that can benefit from sidechain analysis is computational security. What does that mean? One of the main areas of research for a long time is you have a component and it's supposed to be secure with certain properties. You have another component, and what happens when they interact together? This is one of the landmark papers also that came out in 2011. Best intuition since Thomson, 1984, Reflections on Trusting Trust. Don't trust anything if you didn't write the own compiler or you didn't get the sand for the silicon. It turns out that many of these problems are undecidable for practically all components that are out there because they are too powerful. Their language recognizer is not restricted to context-free grammars or regular expressions. It is too powerful. It is, most of them are unnecessarily Turing complete, but nothing that, even something that recognizes non-deterministic push-down automata is too strong. This is the work of Len Sassaman, may he rest in peace, and Sergei Bratos, and of course Anna and others. And this is so they coined the minimal computational power principle, and sidechain analysis will help in finding these type of signatures when security guarantees cannot be given as well. The last point. So I woke up one morning and stock market crashed, flash crash 2010, and then they gave this explanation that there was a fat finger trader, and I said, I mean. Americans, believe a lot of things, but I mean that was a little bit too much for me. So I looked at some of the graphs, and looked very familiar to me. It looked like Core Wars. Stuff that you may know, Core Wars from Bell Labs and so on. I said, this is machine-induced. I know this is machine-induced. So I knew nothing about trading at all, but you know, I like to learn stuff. So I called a couple of people, and I studied the stuff, and when I figured out what happened, and I wrote it up long before the SEC's report came out and whitewashed, and I happened to be, I was happy about that. I was not wrong. I took all my money out of the stock market because the stock market nowadays is rigged against investors. But what my main point is that there's a time regime in algorithmic trading, in black box trading, that is only dominated by machines. Nanex has many of these graphs, so this is not normal trading. These are high-frequency traders that are bleeding institutional, slower investors. And what happens is that you cannot, again, one of the results of having these autonomous agents work in aggregate is that there's no security guarantees can be given on the dynamics in the aggregate. What does it have to do with SyChannels? Well, there is a guy at ETHC, which is a very good university in Switzerland, called Cernet, and he studied this stuff a long time ago. Already 2003, he looked at super exponential predictors for stock market crashes, and I'm thinking that this was also one of my nominations for best cybersecurity paper, but they were too conservative to select it. So what I'm thinking is that you can use these detection techniques that I delineated there to find these event signatures in the phase space in order to since you cannot predict what will happen in the future, what you have to do is try to detect certain abnormal patterns before it actually happens, before it actually comes to a head. If you ever looked at somebody who had epilepsy, what happens with epilepsy if you put an EEG onto your brain? The neurons fire in sync. That's pathological behavior. Your heart rate does not go regular, boom, boom. Your heart rate is slightly irregular, has to be, because if it weren't, it would blow up your blood vessels. So normal systems are designed, or normal resilient systems like human beings are designed in a way that you have certain phase-based signatures that have certain characteristics. You can use this type of insight into stability of systems in order to detect these type of build-up of pathological conditions, let's say in trading, in order to do circuit breakers and graceful distillation and rectifiers. The relevance to Singapore, that's one of the things I was discussing here, very advanced here. They have smart cities. Soon, or in our lifetime, we'll see cities that will be algorithm controlled. You know, sun will rise, the solar cells will point towards the sun, you know, we'll have energy. I mean, it's going to be a great vision if no one attacks it. But even if no one attacks it, these systems are bound to break down. But we don't want to be in a situation where suddenly there's no water for everybody, or for little India or what have you. So there's some good examples, like Portland in Oregon, in the United States, have good initiatives. The bad one is, let's say, Cisco and South Korea's Songdo, which is a bit of a ghost city. So anyway, I think it would be useful for that. Yeah. So yeah. I'm at the end of my presentation. I don't always do this kind of stuff. I also have fun, like with these graphs. So this is from the Journal of Irreproducible Results. It's one of the hardest journals to get published in, 80% rejection rates. And you know the expression, you know, you're comparing apples with oranges. So this guy took a sun-kissed navel orange and a granny-kissed apple, ground them into pellets, put it through a $10 million spectrogram, and printed this out here, the frequency spectrum. And I carried this around for 8 years, waiting for the occasion when someone would say, you're comparing apple with oranges, and I would take it out triumphantly and say, no, I'm not, but this is. And it never happened. But I still like to look at it and think, well, what could have been? What could have been?